What is up, everyone? This is SwordKings990 and the return of the PVN event, or Pirates vs. Ninja event for Pewdiepie's Tube Simulator for the year 2026. We are in the month of May, and we're going to be enjoying this. One of the best events you could actually have in the game is that there are so many items to collect and so many items you can use within the event or outside of the event, meaning the room events and things like that for decorations. Now, we still have the sci-fi event, and we're gonna go ahead and just change it up. Well, sci-fi customizations, you get what I mean. But first of all, is that we have 13 days at the time of this recording to enjoy this event, and from there, you're gonna have to get your tokens, and apparently I did not update the game, because I have a lot of the actual... That's a first. I usually updated the game, and I completely forgot to do so. I'm gonna have to do that real quick. Okay, just updated the game and the music has changed, which is my favorite anyways. This is gonna be All Sails Out. So the other song you listened to, that it was Shinobi, but we're gonna stay with All Sails Out because it's more energetic. Now, back to what I was saying earlier, that we have 13 days to enjoy this event, and as you can see here, we have the Iron Track rewards, so that be sure to update your game before you collect any of the rewards, because if you have not done so, then sadly, you will miss out on the very first reward. A lot of people have made that mistake, so do not make that mistake. Update your game manually through Google Play or the Apple's App Store. Now, we are in version 2.77.0. If you look at the title screen from the main page, or wherever you want to call it, you could even go to the options, if I'm not mistaken. That on the bottom there, you'll see that we are at 2.77.0. So make sure you're on that update. Now, I digress, that be sure to get your daily tokens from your quest, the Pogo minigame, the sponsor gives, and as well as the Craniac minigame to be able to get these rewards you see on the screen. And then for the egg, it's gonna be either Mimic or Nobu. So that's gonna be one of the ones that you're able to get for the Pixelings. Now, let's go ahead and move on from here. We're gonna go to our customizations. We have a brand new desk. I'm sorry, that is new. Look at that. Awesome. Let me go ahead and buy that. I like the design of that one, so we're already getting ahead of ourselves. Now, we're gonna go to our shirts. I'm gonna be a pirate again. I love just being a pirate. It's just so awesome. Wait, that is ninja. Okay, so you have different outfits. You have pirates and ninjas, so you have a lot of options to choose from. So let's go ahead and go with this one. So there you go. We're gonna go ahead and go with the mask awards, that you have a combination of pirates and ninja. You have warriors. You have a bit of, I would say, a Mortal Kombat reference here and there. You have a pirate with a parrot on a hat. Well, right, pirate parrot. There you go, with a pirate hat. Then you have a little bit of a shadow ninja. You have a treasure chest. Then you have Davy Jones. You have a demon, a conical hat, a kitsune mask, which is very nice indeed. Then you have another pirate with a parrot on the shoulder. Davy Jones ghost, a no mask. Then you have a shonen warrior. I still cannot remember which one is this one on top of my head, but you also have the V for Vendetta mask type of deal. And then you also have a kappa, and then a shark, the Eastern dragon, then the egg mask. I forgot what it was called. I just don't remember on the top of my head, but even then, you have that. Then you have a skull and crossbones, and then you have the normal masks that you're able to get from the shop itself. The other ones are mask awards. And then you also have a little bit of props to look at as well. And one of them is a mask award as well. That it's gonna be the skull mask, and then the other masks that you're able to get is just from the shop itself. That you have eye patches, a bit of another mask right here that actually blends in with other eyeglasses, things like that. Then another eye patch, and then glowing eyes, which is also great for the Halloween theme too. So be sure to just take a look at all the different options you could actually get from the shop itself. So there you have that. And now back to what we're gonna go with the mask awards. Since we're gonna be a pirate again, I just like to use the ones with the dreads, and then there you go. And apparently I lost my glasses. I should get my glasses back. Let's go ahead and do that. There you go. Now I look nice right now. Now we go ahead and move on to the chair. And you have planks and a dragon chair, but since we're gonna be a pirate, let's go ahead and do that. Then let's go ahead and see what we got for the keyboard. And you also have a map and some gold there too, so that's very nice indeed. And then for the desk, that you have different ones. I like I said that earlier, that you have a brand new desk to buy, so we already got that activated. But then you also have more desks from the left and the right. You have a pirate desk for the cabin, and then you have another desk with the ninja underneath it. And then for the monitor, looks like we have a scroll and as well as a cannon. So we're gonna go ahead and go with the cannon that also has a lit fuse. And now we're gonna go ahead and see that we have some flooring, I think. That we also have a bit of a dojo type flooring, that it has a light type of wooden tiles and then a darker one for the cabin. Then you also have one for the walls there too, so you have a dojo wall and as well as a bit of another one for the cabin as well. So that's pretty much the theme. Either you're going to be in a dojo or you're going to be in a cabin. So there you go, and a ship of course. So let's see here, let us see here, where is it at? I just skipped over it, didn't I? Okay, that's what I usually do, I just skip over things. So we're going to go ahead and scroll further down. I am lost right now. Where is it at? It should be at one of the lower levels, is it not? Let's see, let us see. Where? What? Okay, there you go, level 9. Okay, I was just getting ahead of myself, so there you have that. Alright, let's go ahead and move on from here. That for the background, of course, that you have VFX. That is going to be a bit of shurikens and as well as cannonballs, which is very nice to have. Look at that, they are at war with each other, but we're just sitting there chilling out and just having fun with this. Probably heard the dogs barking in the background. They are protecting our home, so there you go. Good dogs. Now, let's go ahead and move on from here. And we're going to go ahead and see that we have customizations to buy. That is going to be, well, that's animal category. I did not want to do that. Let me go ahead and get back to Pirates vs. Ninja. We have a pile of gold. So there's a lot of things you could actually buy for the event itself and outside the event, like these stones right here. You can make them stepping stones. You can make them decorations for your garden. You have barrels of fun. And you also have a bit of some other types of piers and things like that. Even a pile of bones for Halloween. That you also have a cobblestone wall, which is very nice indeed to make yourself a beautiful garden. And then we have the water tile. This is one of the best items you could actually buy because you can make yourself an actual river, a pool, a beachfront, just whatever you want to do. All the imaginations you can do with water, it's from this event. So be sure to buy as many of them as you can. Probably only need 30 of them anyway so that you could actually fill up your room. Then you have more structures and things like that just for added decorations like some bamboo and then some tidal waves. So there you go. Look at that. And as well as a training dummy for just, well, martial arts. Then you have a little bird. Tiny little blue bird that also flaps his wings and tweets, although you can't hear the tweet, but it still flaps his wings if you wait a few more seconds. But even then, it's just so adorable. Then you also have more structures. Look at that. And then you also have a bit of windows, simple ones for the cabin right here. Then a bit of a shuriken onto the wall. Then another pile of gold. So there's a lot of things you could actually have. Then a bit of a poster, a simple one at that. A seagull that squawks if it just sits there idly. So there you go. It is also animated, so I love the fact that they add little details like that. Then another type of just centerpieces for your garden or just anything outdoors. Then a bottle, a simple one at that with a ship in a bottle or not, or message in a bottle. Then a lot of bamboo. Then you also have a bit of wreaths to actually use it as an underwater theme if you wish to. Then a little bit of a lantern, a simple one at that with some writing. Then a glowing type of stand with a sword. I've always thought of it as a sword. I have no idea what else to call it. Even then, it looks nice. And then a crystal skull. So there you have that. Then we have an anchor in the ground. A simple one at that, just to simply park your ship or dock your ship, however you want to call it. Then a bit of a fortune cat. Then you also have Blackbeard himself. So there you go. And as well as his ghost. So there you go. I guess the Kraken got to him, or maybe it was Moby. Who knows? And even then, we're on to the item check rewards. Yeah, you have a cannonball, some gems, a shovel, and a ninja. Then a simple water tile, just one that is for whatever reason, if you ran out of room and you just need something to fill in some space, there you go. Then you also have, or it could be used for a mini city event. So you also have a carpet, a simple one at that, with a red skull and a white skull. Then a bit of a priestess. There you have that. Then we also have an accordion playing pirate, so you can have your sea shanties with this one. And then you also have a bit of some shrines or a light up thing. I cannot remember off the top of my head what you would you want to call it, or what you can call it. If I can even talk correctly, I'm just having a little bit of tongue twisters around here. But even then, you also have a unfortunate soul who got trapped there forever. And then there's Moby. There you have that. This is giant behemoth of a whale. And you also have a bit of a wolf. I'm going to call it a wolf. I don't know what else you really want to call it. But even then, a dog, if you want to call him that as well. Even then, he has a sword, so he knows how to fight. Then you have another pirate. Just look at that. Maybe it is Blackbeard's wife. Then you also have an archer ninja with this one too. Then a bit of, well, a little bit of flags. There you go. May I add a fish? Well, you get the idea. It's a fish flag right there. Then you also have a wall to build, so that you could actually have a little bit of more leeway with making your room. Then you also have a bit of a ninja just coming out from the ground here that also blends in with any type of flooring you have. Then you have an archway. I do not remember what it is called to save my life right now, but you also have a dragon statue, gold and as well as stone. Then you have a harpoon gun, a giant one at that to fight Moby with, a little bit of modern. Then you have a katana, which is also good because you can actually use some invisible blocks to make it look like a tuber's holding a katana. Well, there you go. The fox has a katana. Cute and deadly. Then you also have a ship in a bottle. So there you go. I was not wrong with calling one of the items a ship in a bottle, but even then, there you have that. It was just the wrong item anyways. But some nunchucks right there, simple ones at that. Then you have a monk, a Buddhist monk at that, or a Shaolin monk, I should say actually. But even then, or it could be either or. Then a bit of a treasure map, a simple one at that. Then you also have a prismatic crab. Just look at that beauty. Then you have a whirlpool that also changes colors, so you have different ones to choose from. So it could either be a whirlpool or just a summoning circle, I would say. Then you also have a bit of a fish net. So there you go, you caught a lot of fish to eat. Then a lot of bamboo stock with a ninja hiding in there. So there you have it, or nothing else. Is it reeds? I'm going to call it reeds at this point. Even then, there's a lot of bamboo. This could be called reeds. Then you also have a bit of a, I don't want to call it a trap door, but it's just something that it goes on top of the ship, or you get the idea that you could just, I don't know, it could be a prison cell at this point. Anyways, you have something to work with that too. Then you have a monkey, a pirate monkey at that. Then you also have a tiny little pirate for the mini city. So there you go. Isn't that adorable? Then you have a palm tree, a beautiful one at that. Then you also have another archer. So there you have that with a longbow. Then you also have walking the plank. This poor unfortunate soul gonna have to walk off the plank from the ship. And then you also have a conical hat, a simple one at that, or it could be just a giant seashell. So there you go, Sally sells seashells down by the seashore. Then you have a lot of masks onto the wall. And then you also have some more windows. There are a lot of items for the Pirates vs. Ninja event because it's one of the best ones out there. You have so much to choose from and so much to collect, like the Shadow Ninja onto the wall. Then we have a lot of items that I've already maxed out on. Look at all that. But we still have other items I have yet to max out on. So let's go ahead and take a look at them right now. So from the inventory, we have a bamboo stock, a tall one at that. Then you also have another wall to build your dojo with. So there you have that. Then you also have a ship, just one miniature ship for perspective of mini city. Then you also have tentacles, kraken tentacles. I was about to combine those words. Radicals, I don't even know anymore. But even then, we have cutlass onto the wall. Then you also have a megalodon shark. It really just matters of perspective. If you were to put the ship right next to it, it'll look like a megalodon. If not, then it's just a small tiger shark. Then you also have, or is it something else? Great white. That's the one I was thinking about. But even then, you have about a little bit of mountains here that you either have Mount Fuji or Mount Everest, however you want to look at it. Then you also have a red sun or a blood moon. Then you also have a steering wheel for the ship. And then you also have an anchor, a rusty anchor at that, but even then, that's one giant anchor. And then a camouflage ninja that just blends into the background here. So there you have that. Then you also have another warrior with two swords with this one. Then you also have a bit of a birch tree. This is what it reminds me of a birch tree. Even then, I don't know what else to call it. Then another cannon, one giant cannon at that. Then a little bit of Smitty, or at least one of the pirates that you have for your crew. Then another warrior with a sword or katana. And then you have the umbrella with spikes. Then I call this hive mind. I don't know what else to call it, but even then, looks fantastic. Then buried treasure. Look at that. Then also some gold onto a skull here. Then, whoop, didn't mean to press that. I don't want to press unbox all. I am saving that for a winter day or a rainy day at that matter. All right, moving on from here. Then we have a shark fin at that. It's not animated, but it's still menacing. Then we have a bit of some Mortal Kombat references like Scorpion, Sub-Zero right here. Then you also have a Kraken. Look at that. Or no, Sea Serpent. Kraken is not yet here. But either way, we have a bit of a Shadow Clone Jutsu. Then we have Sonya right here. I am just referencing it based on what their outfits are. Then you also have the Kraken Tentacle getting a pirate. Then you also have a bit of a simple table with some map and rum and just a diary here. Or better yet, a captain's log. Then you have a dancing cat, a cute one at that. Look at him go. Then we have a canoe or a paddle boat. I don't know which one is which. I know it's not a kayak, but even then, you also have some more rafts to go with that. Then you also have more warriors. Look, this one is kind of more traditional. Then we have a cool skateboarding ninja right here. Then you also have a shipwreck. Just a simple one at that, just sunk into the bottom of the sea at this point. Then you also have, well, that's pretty much all there is to it. We're going back to the tracker rewards with this one here too. But we also have a trophy for the actual room event, so if you happen to be in the top 100 for said room events when it comes to the Pirates vs. Ninja theme, then you'll be able to get this cool trophy. Now moving on to the pixelings that you're able to get for the event, and of course that outside the event, you're still able to collect these pixelings, so do not worry about missing out. So scrolling all the way down, we're going to go ahead and go with the non-Prisma form. That we're going to have Nobu and as well as Mimic. So Nobu, there you go, a Ninja Ubu. Oh, I didn't mean to put you away, so let's go ahead and put right here, there you go. Then we're going to have Mimic. So Nobu gives you a boost right here in the dark category when it comes to subscribers. And then that's a common egg. And then for the golden egg, it's going to be Mimic. So it gives you a view boost in gaming and as well as lifestyle. And it's also the golden category. So we have Mimic right here. And then we'd go ahead and go to Prisma Nobu and Prisma Mimic. So let's go ahead and scroll further up. So there is Prisma Mimic. And then where is Nobu? There you go. There you have that. And then in a few, well, I don't know how many seconds they're going to be moving about, but you're going to see that Mimic has eyes, teeth, and as well as a tongue. So let's go ahead and give it a few more seconds, and then we'll get to see them come alive here. So there you go. Look at that. Look how animated they are. They just bounce around, moving about here. So just be careful when you're actually going for that treasure. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the item packs that you're able to get for the event itself. So the first one is going to be the Pirate Pack, and then the second one is going to be the Ninja Pack. That it contains 25 exclusive items. They don't give you XP, but every pirate needs the tools fit for their trade. And then that it gives you another 25 exclusive items that they don't give you XP like training does, but having the proper equipment is also vital. Now let's go ahead and look at them right here. That we're going to go to our inventory, and then let's see here. Let's see here. The first item that we're going to have the Pirate Pack. That we have a gourd, or at least a bottle, an animated flag. Then you also have a bit of a pirate that's just been buried in the sands of time, and then a prisoner. So there you have that, perfect for the Halloween event. Then another bit of crates, just a simple one at that with a reference to Outer Mines. Then a treasure map. Where does it go? X marks the spot. Then we have some scaffolding. I just call it that because I have no idea what else to call it. Then you also have a treasure chest, a beautiful one at that with some gold. Then you also have a giant skull or a rock. Then you also have a a parrot. This one is not animated, so it just sits there looking cute. I think it is a macaw. Then you also have a little tiny cannon. Is it a buccaneer cannon? I'm not too sure. But we also have a mermaid or a siren. Then we're on to the ninja pack with a bonsai tree. Beautiful. Then a bit of a gourd. This is the one that I need to call it a gourd because that's exactly what it is. Then the yin yang koi fish. Or yeah, I believe that's correct. Anyways, we have another scroll, and then a bit of some katanas and weaponry onto our rack. Then you also have more weaponry on a display case. Then a bit of a pedestal with a scroll here too. And then you have a door, a simple one at that. And then a bit of a house or dojo or training grounds, whatever you want to call it. You can put some items onto the roof as well. Then you have 3 ninjas, so this is the first one. And then we have a second one. And then we're going to have a third one onto the wall here. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Edgar and Maya when it comes to the event itself. So let's go ahead and buy some items real quick. That I've been maxing out the animal category little bit by little bit. So we are very close to the end here. Look at all of that. We still have quite a few items to go. Maybe it's 12. I'm not too sure. But let's go ahead and buy some cobras going on here. So there you have that. And then we're going to go ahead and see what Edgar and Maya look like. I'm pretty sure that we have pirate outfits like Maya. And then a ninja outfit for Edgar. So there you go. Okay, that's Maya again. And then there's Edgar. Look at that. They are just so plain adorable. There we have it. That is the Pirates vs. Ninja event for the year 2026. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about the event. Do you like it? Do you not like it? It is here for the next 2 weeks. And my personal opinion is that it is one of the best events for the game itself because there are so many items you can collect to use within the event as well as outside the event. So the combinations and as well as the imaginations for decorations for your room, that is pretty much endless at that point. But either way, Sadly, this was going to be the end of this video, so if you enjoyed this video, found this video to be entertaining as well as helpful, please give this video here a like to help support the channel and the videos here on YouTube. If you're brand new to the channel and want some more videos, content, and live streams of the future, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification, turn on all notifications to not miss out on future content, and last but not least, feel free to leave any PewDiePie's 2% username as well as the network in the comment section below. Have more friends, have more followers, have more gifts, have more people join the network, have more fun playing the game every single day, as I could continue to update this game every month. But until next time, I've been SorkKings90. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe out there, and as always, I'll see you guys next time in a new video or live stream.
I won't forget your last betray.